we have somebody who has now been named a head coach, or at least reported to be named, about to be named as a head coach. And once that stuff gets out, we take it as fact. And I think it's going to happen. And it appears that the Buffalo Bills have elevated their offensive coordinator, Joe Brady, to be a first-time head coach, not just in the National Football League, but just flat out in general. The former offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills is now the new head coach of the Buffalo Bills. And let's unpack it this way. Let's start with what we do know about Joe Brady. I just mentioned he's the offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. He's also 36 years of age. Nice young buck. He is a former wide receiver by trade.
Okay.
Air Force and William and Mary is where he played his college ball. And after playing his college ball, he hopped into coaching at William and Mary, spent a couple years as a graduate assistant at your spot in Penn State, TJ. And then Sean Payton got a wind of him. And he winds up as an offensive assistant on the Saints staff. And then maybe the first time you've heard of Joe Brady, he was the passing game coordinator and wide receivers coach for LSU in the Joe Burrow era. So he's in charge of a passing game that wound up with a quarterback throwing 60 touchdown passes and a wide receiver room with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, just to name two within it. Okay.
Feels like Del Tufo could have done that job.
I don't know about that. All I know is that he had a if you want to call it a lump of clay, all right. He turned it into the most famous pottery since Ghost.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
And if you remember, Joe Brady coming off of that year in 2019 was the hottest assistant coach hire. Like the NFL was falling over themselves saying, all right, we see what you did in LSU. We don't care that you're barely 30 years old. And the team that kind of won the Joe Brady lottery was the Carolina Panthers. Matt Rule hired him to be the offensive coordinator for him. Now, that didn't work out. The whole Matt Rule era didn't work out. So that means, was he the offensive coordinator for both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold when he was there from 2020 to 2021?
Yeah, probably.
And off of that, the Buffalo Bills say, you know what we need with Brian Daboll heading to the New York Giants to be their head coach? We need somebody to pair up with Ken Dorsey to be the quarterback coach of Josh Allen. And they decide to hire Joe Brady for that role in 2022. And in 2023, with Joe Brady being the one along with Ken Dorsey in the meeting rooms and in the helmet of Josh Allen, Sean McDermott, in 2023, who had just parted ways with his longtime defensive coordinator, or is about to, Leslie Frazier, bounces Ken Dorsey in the middle of the season after they lose to Russell Wilson on Monday Night Football in a very frustrating game. Sean McDermott, after having already parted ways with Leslie Frazier, decides to bounce Ken Dorsey. If you remember at that time, Marshall Faulk came on the show. It was either with me or with Suze when he was sitting in this chair saying Sean McDermott is running out of coaches to blame. There's only him left. When you bounce all these coordinators and change coordinators, you're the only one left for ownership to put in the sights if you don't perform. And sure enough, who was in the sights just a few weeks ago but Sean McDermott? And who is now his successor? Joe Brady. And that's what we know. That's what we know. Clearly a trusted voice for Josh Allen. That's what we know. He's been in his ear since the 2022 season. He clearly knows what to do with a passing game. He clearly knows what to do when you give him top-flight wide receivers, which Buffalo arguably does not have. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's what we know. We also are assuming this wasn't a power play because we heard the owner doesn't countenance such things. We do know that they kicked the tires on many other coaching candidates, including Phillip Rivers. And that's what we know. We know the Buffalo offense has blossomed, or at least performed better with Joe Brady calling the plays than what Ken Dorsey was doing. We know that. Although Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator for a playoff game in which the Bills scored 36 points with Gabe Davis scoring 4 touchdowns in a very famous divisional round loss to Kansas City. We know that. Which brings us to what we don't know. How will Joe Brady handle having a 3-point lead with 13 seconds to go in a playoff game? How will he handle a situation where they're forced to settle for a field goal only to have it missed by a kicker, just a guy named Bass, for instance? Like, how will these things manifest itself? How will he stand up for Buffalo in a manner that the owner can appreciate or focus on to say, that's my coach? We don't know that. That we don't know. You know, the 13-second thing is lingering also this week. I don't know if you saw former Buffalo Bill Jerry Hughes hopped onto the socials in responding to a couple of, I guess, Bills fans laying that at the feet of Sean McDermott or approaching that. Hughes, if the coach can manage to lose a football game in 13 seconds after the QB put together phenomenal play after phenomenal play, that coach should be fired. Seems like someone was on borrowed time, in reference to Sean McDermott. And then somebody asked if he left because of that. Once Sean screwed up the 13 seconds with his calls, prevent defense on every single play, I knew he wasn't serious.
Whoa.
Now, again, I'm bringing up a former player who might be axe grinding and things of that nature. But clearly, at the end of the day, the owner of the Buffalo Bills and Terry Pegula thought the same thing about Sean McDermott. And what does that mean? Can Joe Brady somehow get this team over the hump? And with him now elevated to the role of head coach in these meetings with apparently Josh Allen and some of them, and obviously Brandon Beane is in there, and him given the check mark. Did he at some point say to Brandon, hey, listen, I've got my thoughts on the roster? Has he even had the time or platform or moment to have already voiced that to Beane throughout the years as the offensive coordinator? Has he pounded a table in the draft room? Did he want Keon Coleman? I want to know. Was he part of the staff?
Tiger wish he could.
I don't know. Or do we just all put everything that I've just mentioned into the McDermott box, lock it up, throw it away, and say the floor is yours, Joe Brady? I don't think I've minced any words here. Guy can dial it up. Guy has dialed it up at 2 different levels, right? Now he's the head coach of the Buffalo Bills, along with Jeff Hafley in Miami, Aaron Glenn with the Jets, and the guy that they're all going to be chasing for, one would think, years to come, Mike Vrabel, going to the Super Bowl. By the way, the aforementioned Leslie Frazier, you know where he's going this year? The Super Bowl. He's on the Seattle staff.
Right.
So you might catch a glimpse of him. Bills fans might have caught a little glimpse of him every now and then on the sideline from Mike McDonald. So he's going to the Super Bowl along with Sam Darnold before Josh Allen. More bitter pills for the Bills fans to swallow. But maybe, just maybe, at the end of the day, this is the guy who is going to be the brash, bold head coach of the Buffalo Bills for a long time to come. Maybe they've made the hire that Steelers fans wish they made with the young guy on the offensive side of the ball as opposed to the young guy on the defensive side of the ball that they've always had, or the current OG type coach that they're hoping can rekindle things in Pittsburgh. But just up the road, we'll see. Everybody, as you know, is trying to still, 9 years later, get the next Sean McVay. Dialing it up. Young guy who can run the organization on behalf of a front office that is untouched and appreciated by ownership. And that is the structure that I just laid out, what the Bills are doing. Owner appreciates and strengthens the role of the general manager and hires a young offensive mind for Josh Allen. And the catbird seat head coach opening with the reigning MVP for at least, 9 more days, Josh Allen, although he is in the mix as a finalist, it would be a surprise if it's not Drake Mayers or Matthew Stafford. But that seat belongs to Joe Brady. And the Ravens went with a young defensive guy in Jesse Minter. And though it's my 2 cents, I see what they're doing. I understand and appreciate the continuity with Josh Allen. If he says, hey, all things being equal, Terry Pagula, let's go with the guy who I know and I like, and you know and you like, and you know Brandon Beane and like. All things being equal, let's go with him. But at the end of the day, everything that Terry Pagula was pissed off about in that press conference that kind of shocked everybody is, can Joe Brady avoid it? Get the Bills over the hump to the Super Bowl. We shall see. Hey, you made it all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Check us out every single day streaming live on Disney Plus and the ESPN app 12 to 3 Eastern.